Welcome back to another episode of the Burn the Ladders podcast. Today I wanted to start off with a little soundtrack, a little ba 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 da 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 ba 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 da da da. That's AZ's "I'm Back" for the uninitiated. Um,
Oh,
yeah, I thought maybe you'd catch that one, but we are glad to have my friend Brandon Bird back in the building, the Bird Man from the Bird's Nest,
yes, sir.
helping me out because I had not recorded in a minute here, and we want to keep these things regular. So I figure, we've had a few episodes now, gotten here some people who Bird and I both know and follow. Um, so we've gone through a range of ideas, and maybe now enough time had passed that now we can, we got Bird's backstory out of the way. So now we can just get into some conversation about some actual training, do the part
Oh,
of the
yeah.
job that I'm actually excited to do. As always, we're brought to you by OVR Performance. You can go to OVRperformance.com right now. Right now, the website it's always up. There's prices on there. There's buy it now buttons, add to cart, check out. You don't have to call me or somebody else to get a quote. Just, everything is up front and above board. It's easy, straightforward shopping. And you can go get, I think this box is actually empty, but you can go get devices like, I know Bird just ordered his, the OVR Velocity.
Just got it.
Um,
Get it to
and
me
he's
next
also,
week.
yeah, he's also got the Jump. Um,
Love my
and,
jump.
yeah. And we just announced, we got another big reveal coming on the way
Drum
here.
roll.
Yeah, just a few days. So go to the website, sign up for the email and everything. Make sure you don't ever miss a drop. We got a lot of really cool things coming. Um, we're trying to make training affordable, accessible. There's no reason that you should have to have a massive budget behind you in order to have fun training. So with all that said, Bird, how are you doing today?
Doing good, man. Can't complain. I'm excited. I love the summertime because I get we work hard to get these kids to college. And they come
Mm.
back in and it's a New Year's, it's turning the page, man. And you got these younger kids trying to get to college. And it's just a meeting of good competition and good training, and it's the good weather. Usually in Pennsylvania it's cold, but now I get to work on some weather that the southern people get to take advantage of, which is pretty cool. So I love the summertime. I
Yeah.
just came off a successful track season, man. One of my best ones. I love doing track and field.
Hmm.
I you know I consider myself, these kids coming to me, they want to get faster. So what better way to validate a coach's success by having his track kids do well. So
Hmm.
I had 13 kids that win district gold medals, and I think that's a record for me. And I had 10 state medalists, that's a record for me too. Pennsylvania is
That's
a pretty state, but I had 10. I gotta give credit to these kids. They work hard for it. I had this
mhm.
girl Abby. Back in the day, I was wanted to. Lou, I was always jealous of Louis had got people driving from 3 hours away, 4 hours away to train with him. I said I want to be that good one day. This one girl, Abby Burgess from Athens, PA, by Williamsport, with a home to Little League World Series. That's 3 hours from me. She came. She came 3 hours one way to train with me, and she was like a 12.4 100-meter dash girl and a 26-second 200-meter dash girl. She trained, and guess what? She took fourth in the state. That was a complete upset, you know. And the girl's gonna be Division 1 now. So like, dreams can happen with the right training. My girl
Mhm.
Amanda, she was a 27-second 200 girl. I'm not handed. I'm not. People think I'm handed like the creme de the creme. This girl's a 27-second, runner. Guess what? She went 24.55, ran the second best 200 in the district, Only Talita Diggs has that record. She was point 0.2 of the record. Talita Diggs is a professional now, so
Hmm.
I'm trying to beat that record. But I kept saying you're gonna medal next year. You're gonna get a medal this year. You're gonna run 24. So that's what happened. She got a medal this year. Faith, that my hurdler Faith, she was a 17-1 hurdler. These aren't like the most talented kids, you know.
Yeah.
Guess what? We ran 14:41, broke a 41-year-old league record held by Debbie Linton. Her family had great genetics. Her brother played for the Buffalo Bills in the University of North Carolina. She finished 7th. I kept saying, "You're gonna medal. You're gonna medal," and they're like, "Oh, we'll see." Well, I knew my training how it works. I knew she's gonna medal.
Hmm.
Of course, the great Natalie Walters, one of the all-time great athletes I've ever trained in my entire life. She just smashes all the records. I remember like Louis would say, "Oh, I got a girl jump on a 54-inch box, 55-inch box." So I've always wanted a girl that could do that. I had Lindsay Bauer a few years ago, the state medalist in long jump.
Hmm.
Natalie Walters jumped on the 57-inch box,
Woo.
which is crazy.
Yeah.
8'8" broad jump. The girl runs a .94 in a 10-yard fly. And she on the OVR, I love the OVR.
Hmm.
The girl has she had a seated 29.7 jump on the OVR, which is tough. You know, people
Yeah.
ever use that. It's super strict.
Yeah.
So she did.
That's a 33, 34 on some other devices.
She did that. She won the indoor state championship. She has three long jump state championships, one triple jump state championship. She had a little hamstring injury this year, which derailed her, you know, but
Hmm.
silver medalist in the triple jump and a fifth in the long jump. I had two state long jump medalists. This girl, Lex Gruffet. I'm not handling the greatest one. This girl was a 16 second hurdler. She got down to 15 low. Never ever long jump before. Guess what? She had 18.9. She won districts actually, and then she took 7 in the state. Now she's Division 1. So I'm trying to make division. These the back there, they're not. I'm not handing these kids. They earn these scholarships, you know.
Yeah.
And then Gavin Nelson. You know, he's a 5'8" basketball player, 140 pounds. He ain't gonna get D1 scholarship. Guess what? You know, he's 6'2" high jumper, 6'1" high jumper. He comes in. I go, Gavin, I've been doing this for years. I know I'm gonna put 4 inches on your high jump. I'm gonna put 6 inches on your actual vertical. Okay, that'd be cool, Bird. He's like these kids don't believe this. Like they think I'm just exaggerating this stuff and making it up. Guess what? He is 6'7", and then okay, people think they're done. They think, oh, that's over. It's this is the first year. Guess what? I put another 4 inches on it. He is 6'10", broke a school record, won districts. He was winning the states. The only guy that beat him, this guy had this football player, the freakish day. He broke the record jump 7'3". He took second. So,
Yeah.
so I was just excited about that, man. Like that was just Noah Doblin. He won the 100-meter hurdles.
Hmm.
It was incredible, man. I should have had one more. I had this kid Cole Swick, crushed it indoor, made nationals. Unfortunately, had an hamstring injury, couldn't do it. Noah, plug Noah OVR too. I had this kid Noah Tapler.
Hmm.
If you follow me, he's the guy that hit 40 on that OVR, which is super hard.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Hard.
Yeah.
Now,
That was the first time. Uh, that was the first. Well,
maybe a
one
video
other
of it.
person.
Right?
Yeah, one other person had done an approach jump of over 40.
Yeah.
You know, so they got multiple steps to run in, and then like because we were waiting for a while. I had several kids hit 39 plus on an approach, and Jared I think had a 39.6 on standing vertical, and I had a 39. My kid Mark had a 39.1, I think. And then unfortunately he had some family circumstance and he moved across the state.
Yeah.
But he was one of my little show ponies here. And then yeah, so we had seen, like you had like a 39.6 or something. There was a whole bunch of people who were hitting in that 39 range.
Closed it in. Everyone was at 39. Mark had a
Yeah.
39. Benny's guy goes to college. Your guy,
Yeah.
unfortunately, and Noah actually, so Noah is a sad thing. Noah, he, in the fall, summer, fall, we're trained. I love the summer. I can kick these games. So Noah, he's looking great. He's running 24 miles an hour consistently. I'm thinking like, this guy's about to blow it out the water. And he's about 39-inch vertical. I'm telling you about it. He's broad jumping 10-2. The guy's like 5'8". He's not tall.
Mm-hmm.
I posted a video of like, my thing, the faster your leg speed is, the faster you kick a football. So they asked him, he's a soccer player, former soccer player. They asked him to kick the football. He kicked the 50-yarder and almost hit a 55-yarder. And during this season, never ever kicked football in his life. And I'm like, this guy's gonna have a phenomenal year. He ran. So they go to the first week of track. He go to the first week of track and field testing, maybe the second week. The guy ran a 4.49 40-meter dash. That's how fast this kid was. I'm thinking this guy's about to win a state title. No, he tore his hamstring after that. I was sick. So he rehabbed, and I go, we got to get this 40, dude. He's like, I got you, Bird. That's what he said to me. And we kept working. He kept working. He finally hit it. We rehabbed him. Now he was like 11-2. Now when I first got it, I'm not handed gifts. This guy was a 12-second. Sometimes I had him a couple off seasons. I forget how bad they were, because Bird, I was running 12 flat. I look up, that's what he was running 12 flat. Very quickly, I got him 11-4, and after that, he had some injuries that not for me. Like he was actually he took a year off, had like a back injury, fractured spine or something like that. So he came back. I said, come back in. I know what you need, because he got down. He was like 11. He was hovering around 11-2. I said, let's get it. He had a phenomenal year. I rehab. I do rehab too. Man, the dude ran the fastest time at our league meet, which is like 40 schools. He ran a 10.82, and it's funny. His hamstring finally got better within the last 3 meets, and he ran. I'm like, the guy. It was amazing, and plus he broke the school record too, which is another long record. So these kids are breaking these records along. So. That was just some of the highlights I've just been going through since we last spoke,
Yeah.
And then Marquez, long time running back, he committed he's had some offers and here and there, but he decided just to commit to Sac State. That was pretty cool. I had him for 7. This kid put on 20 pounds this offseason. He went from
he got big.
You saw him. So
Yeah.
he was like 180. And he had to get to 200 pounds. These college wanted to see a running back about 200. And so I'm like, damn. So he put it on. I'm like, I don't know how he's going to be faster. Like, this is going to be hard as hell. He put on 20 pounds. And he then, by the way, they go, okay, you want to be 200 pounds? Now you got to run a sub 11 somewhat, or 10.8. We must have to, like, golly. So I'm under the gun. He's squatting I think he squatted like 535, something like that. And I put that video on Twitter if you want to go look it up. But then we kept drying it and just doing my speed system and jumping.
Let's stop somewhere in there, because I want to talk about you're talking about all the dishes as they're coming out of the kitchen. I want to talk about some of the cooking today. So, but you bring up Marquez, and that's as good of a place to start as any. I got, as I say that, I like to put things in the context of story. So I got a kid right now, a D2 big defensive lineman. I've told you tons about him. And as he's been training with me for the last, probably like 4 months or so, he's had a huge surge in speed, but now he's also gotten significantly heavier. He's gone from like upper 250s to now closing in on 280. And one of the things that I've had to talk to him about, is as you get bigger, right? Like if he simply was staying the same speed or staying the same strength or size, getting faster wouldn't necessarily be hard, right? Like that's a pretty simple process. But with these football players, especially, everyone wants bigger and faster. The difference, even like Villani talks about this, all the time, that like he's got high schoolers who are, you know, it's not hard to find high schoolers who are as fast as NFL athletes. Even though the internet will always, oh, you're going to tell me some high schoolers running, 4.4, 4.5. Well, yeah, but that's not actually like, that's not impossible by any means. The difference is the NFL athlete is probably 30 to 40 pounds heavier at the same position. And that's the hard part, is because it's all comes down to this, essentially just equations of the force impact of that physical mass moving at that speed. That's what makes that's the separator between, a kid like Mark, for example, who is a 4'4" kid, but at 140 pounds, getting 140 to move like that, not necessarily that hard. And scouts, for him, he's a baseball player. Scouts look at him and go, like, that's great, but being that fast is only so valuable unless you have the size, like, because if you're at the plate and you're not hitting it anywhere, you're not hitting with any power, you're not driving the ball through the gap or over the fence or something, then you don't get the opportunity to use that speed. And likewise on football, if you're that fast in the open field, but you get crushed at the end, or they run straight into you, if you're a defender and they just go, oh, we're just going to pick on the little guy, we're just going to run the ball through his face mask. The speed is the accompaniment to the power of the size. Like the speed at size is the true separator. So for some of my guys, they'll hit these little bursts where they gain, my kid right now, he just gained like 8 pounds maybe in the last 2 weeks. And so he does that, and his jump he's hit jump PRs over the same period of time. Obviously, he hits squat PRs and stuff, again, getting bigger, getting stronger. That part's easy. But, now his running has become, his sprinting. We do a lot of 10 to 20 yard segments because of time and space. We've got this short runway that's accessible to us every day. So we're running, a handful of sprints 2 to 4 times a week. But every time he's got this little bump of he comes in, if he comes in 2 pounds heavier, he runs great. If he comes in like 4 pounds heavier, because it's also, he'll come in 2 pounds heavier and then kind of regress a few days later and be sort of back to his normal. And then it's like his body will unlock another couple pounds. And when he comes in just a couple pounds heavier, it normally means like he's well hydrated, he's well fed the day before, he's slept good. Like I always tell the kids, because I weigh them every day. Like when you come in like 1 to 2 pounds heavier, that's a great day for performance, whether it's jumping or sprinting, because it's like you've got your resources. But sometimes they come back from, a week off and they come in like 5, 6 pounds heavier. And it's like, okay, well now we're probably going to like your speed's going to regress. And what I framed to them, because I just had this conversation a couple times in the last week with a couple guys who got frustrated because they had a great week, they had a vacation, and then they had a bad week in terms of sprinting. Everything else soars because, getting bigger makes the weight room easier. But I told them, like, even while all your weight room stuff is going up, now your calves, your feet, and your elasticity, like big guys are not, by and large, big guys are not elastic,
right?
Which is both true and false. Anyone is only ever elastic relative to the load that they are trying to be elastic with.
Yes.
Yeah. So, so I'm like, all right, so you gained this new weight.
My tight end is like that. I tell my tight end.
Yeah.
He's 230 pounds, 40 pounds.
Yeah. I'm like, so you gain this new weight, but now it's like the tires aren't inflated enough to support the new load. You know, like they could support last week's load fine and they looked bouncy, but now this week, you know, it's like the trailer's too heavy and you know, it's everything's sagging down and taking that little extra get off to get off the ground. And so I was telling this kid, you know, like, so we really got to be diligent about, you know, our belted marches, our sleds, you know, like we can't skip any of that stuff because now, you know, you were getting so fast when those things were starting to surge ahead of where your weight was. And now your weight's coming up, which like we want, you know, I'm like, you're going to be going against 300-pound grown men next year. So we want that weight to be coming up. You need, you know, you want to get on the field, you need that, but you want to look and play with the burst that you should. Now we got to bring up those systems of the lower leg up. And when they're strong enough to support everything up top, all of a sudden that elasticity and that bounce will appear to come back.
Yeah.
But so you've been going through that with Marquez and
That was it. That he's described there. That's a factor. That's a part of the equation. Like, can his lower leg support that heavy weight?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I know the style is easier to do, but it can't. And what would happen early on, he would jump out and he would, especially after 40, 50 meters, he would get sucked up by these lighter guys. And so as time went on, we fixed that, but it was like, can I fix it during this little short season? But that's a valid point. My tight end has the same issue. He's a big guy. He's 240, you know. So, but he's got to be big. He's fighting these defensive ends, you know, tackles and stuff. So that was a part of him. There was the lagging portion to get him faster, you know. So he's Buffalo, Big Mike. He just left off. It sucks when I build these guys up. It's sad when they leave. You know, they got to go to college and get acclimated to their team. But I call my soldiers. I got to send my soldiers off to war, you know, off to battle.
How do they look when they come back?
Oh, that's another thing. So now I'm seeing my college kids come back. It's like I got one. For instance, I got my one kid. He was a D2. He has his school records, and in the 100. And you know, guess what? The vertical jump is 3 inches down. The elasticity is down. Like I do like the hurdle hops. That's like down a couple. You know, maybe it's like 1.1. Now they're like 1.5. The vertical was 34. Now it's down to 30. You know, it's just everything. The speed is a little down. It's crazy how they regress a little bit, but it's, you know, it's not all it's their fault. Like I know the coaches have some times constraints and they have classes but you got to be really smart. And at that point, you got to figure out what the kids' weaknesses are. You got to attack it, you know, because these kids, they're pretty well robust. You just got to be smart with your time and pick what they need to do instead of everybody else doing this. So I see a lot of aggression. I haven't ever seen nobody come back better. It just never has happened, dude. So it's like it's like hunting has that re-engineering too. I got to re-engineer a bunch of my kids, you know, to get them back to that, and then keep building. You know, it's just whoa, you know, we got some work to do. So but it's when I retest them, it's like almost like it's like man, we lost 6 months, dude. You know, it's crazy.
Yeah. I've got so I train, you know, I train all these kids at the school, and we've got, you know, some former athletes who will come back, you know, who are in town for the summer, or, you know, kids who are in the portal and stuff. And these are kids who, like, I saw them when they were in high school, and I saw where they left, and, you know, they all come back bigger. Like, you know, meal plans work. You know, you give a kid load a kid up with a meal card or a credit card that's got some dollars to buy some food. That part colleges do really, really well.
On point.
But like one kid, his school, when he went off, his school posted their testing, and like you saw how well he tested when he left, right? And he was a pretty good athlete, pretty explosive, and then he comes back. This is now 2 years later, and they posted, like his first year, they're like, he's got the best vertical jump in his position group. He's, one of the second or, maybe fastest in his position group. And he's in all the social media off season, his name's on all the lists that they post. Year one. And then year two, he's not on the lists anymore. And the numbers the numbers on the list aren't like going up. It's just different names hitting the same basic numbers. And what, like I've long had this theory, and so I went and I started to look up to compare some of these posts, and I noticed it was like all freshmen and sophomores. And then the next year it's all freshmen and sophomores, and it's basically like kids were aging out of the list. And again, just additionally with like these kids are getting bigger, but these kids are also getting older. And like with OVR, we published I have mountains of data from even before OVR. And I have these huge libraries of like combine scores and metrics from all kinds of different services. And we put up this thing about, like vertical jumps by grade, and sort of like what the averages were. And that there was a fall off with the male athletes from their junior to their senior year. The average kid was, jumping less their senior year than they did their junior year and even their sophomore year. And when we put this up, a bunch of people were like, oh, how could this be? And it's like, guys, this is tens of thousands of data points. This is tens of thousands of kids across, the entire country. And I've talked about this before, like in track, you see, like a lot of you see a lot of medals and championships being won by sophomores and juniors. And those kids don't, they're unable to sort of run it back a lot of times as seniors.
You'd be appalled if you look at the TFERS, which is the online database. You'd be like, wait a minute. Nothing's happening, dude. Like, you're right. The freshman, sophomore, they could do good, or they have a terrible freshman, sophomore year. They kind of, but there's nothing really changes much. That's why I say these football coaches and track coaches and baseball coaches, they want the finished product because they know they might not move when they get there. In fact, they'll go backwards a little bit.
Well, yeah, they're like, so it's also like, I've talked to you about most of, I'm sure, what I'll say today, but like, it's also a thing of, if you just think again about like the human life cycle, I say this all the time. I think, like, to me, this is a very sort of like almost like fundamental point. Like we all have this huge surge right around puberty, and like you get all these hormones, and your body changes. You go from being the child, which is like the prey, to the adult, which is more of I'm speaking in terms of like possibly not a good analogy in this day and age, but like you go from prey to predator in terms of like the development of us as like mammals, right? Like you transition to this sort of physical adulthood where suddenly, in a like more prehistoric kind of sense, before cities and buildings and roadways and municipalities and tax structures and stuff, back when it's just like tribes in the woods, you go from being a vulnerable animal within the environment to the sort of dominant kind of animal within the environment, the biggest kind of threat to everything else. But after that, every single day you recover worse, like, and
Yes.
there comes a point where the sort of surge of development hits its apex. And then it's like, after that, you're just slowly falling off until you die. Like,
Yeah.
and if you think back about those times, it's like, well, people would die at like 30, so did you just have the braids on and then I didn't even notice that. I called you out the last time for
the first podcast, but I said I'm gonna do it now.
That's how.
All the time.
Oh, that's. I can't believe I didn't even pick up on that.
I thought. Wait a minute. That was the first time I was supposed to, but I forgot. But now I want to do it today.
Yeah. Oh man. So, again, for our audio only listeners, I called this out the first time we had Brandon on that, Bird, as long as I've known him, has always had these iconic dreads. And, the last time we did the podcast, he pulled the hoodie back to reveal that he had cut him off. And now this time, like a month later, he started the podcast with dreads, which is like the kind of like absurdity that should play to like my particular sense of humor. And I didn't even pick it up. It's like you had to remind me. But yeah, so going back to it, it's like the greater point is like, as we come off of sort of like puberty, we very quickly hit this point where we're starting to like rapidly degenerate, basically, like without intervention, without training, just the life cycle of a human being as an animal. By our late teens, we are already regressing. But the way that school is structured, where like college athletes are supposed to be better than high school athletes, that's what everyone thinks. So everyone sort of just takes for granted, like, these college kids must still be getting better. And the reality is like, no, that's why, like, it's kind of like the freshman 15, like, do you think kids get this, the freshman 15 because all of the sudden they start eating junk food? It's not that all of a sudden these kids just, their habits entirely fall apart. A big part of it is like what's starting to happen is the rapid sort of like deceleration, the rapid slowing of processes like their metabolism. It's starting to get to a noticeable point. And so the same habits that they've already had, or, small sort of changes to their habits are now starting to produce these noticeable results. So it's like, if you went to the intramural fields at a college and you set up gates and you're like, we're going to time all these kids, you'd see that they were already way slower than, the average kid would already be significantly slower than the average high school athlete. Like, and then you look at the collegiate athletes, and it's like, because of training, they could, and one would argue should, be getting faster. They should easily be getting stronger, because that's sort of the natural response to losing your speed is, well, then you got to get stronger. But what I have seen in looking at the data is this fall off is actually happening in a few years earlier than most people would kind of give credit to it. So you have that in addition for like everything, logistically that's working against the college sort of S&C scene, making it harder. It's not entirely like just on the strength coaches of like, oh, your athletes are coming back weaker and strong, weaker and slower and stuff. It's like, well, also the human body is simultaneously starting to noticeably deteriorate. And it's like, you can easily overcome that, but you kind of have to be able to acknowledge it in order to overcome it. And the athletes have to acknowledge it. So all that is to say, so I get, this handful of like college athletes that I have now, and they come in, and I mean, I've seen high school linebackers get humbled in a sprint by 8th grade soccer girls. You know, things that they would never believe could happen. All that is to say, you know, like these kids come back and you know, one part, the training of whatever they're doing, where they're going, and then just the other variable that no one ever wants to acknowledge is simply they're getting older, and so the whole sort of process is getting harder because they don't recover as well. Everything has to become increasingly targeted. It's sort of like when people, you know, I've said this to you before, like when people kind of bash strength training just in general, especially for things like speed, and everyone, you know, everyone has the same, all the people who do that, they all have the same story where they say like, oh, well, I lifted when I was younger, and I didn't lift when I was younger because I was like a track athlete or something, you know, like we didn't get in the weight room that much. Then I got to college, then I started lifting, and then they're like, you know, flash forward, I'm in my late 20s and I'm slow, and they'll say like, oh, lifting did it. It's lifting's fault that I got slow. And it's like, did you ever survey the guys who didn't lift in the middle?
Right.
Like, have you found a kid who's like, oh yeah, I was fast when I was 17, and then what happened? I just got older and slower every single day.
Yeah.
Like they're worse off. It's like, no, dude, it becomes hard to be faster in your late 20s, early 30s. Like, also these people's stories will all like involve that they stopped sprinting regularly. You know,
Yeah.
I got into, you know, when I was done competing, I got into powerlifting training for a short period, you
Right.
know, and I got a job, and I started sitting at a desk every day, and I didn't sprint for 5 years, and I gained 30 pounds, and I got married, and I had a kid, and all this stuff. And they're like, and then one day I went back out on the track, and could you believe it? I got slow. It must have been the squats. And it's like, no, dude, it's the fact that you got older like everybody else, and you stopped preparing yourself as though you were still a competitive sprinter. And then, wow, predictably, you got slower. Like that just happens. Like, you know, weirdly, that doesn't happen for like the guy who makes the Olympics at 28. You know, like that guy, for some reason, who trains as a professional sprinter for a decade and lifts for a decade and sprints, you know, multiple times a week for a decade. Like that guy doesn't experience the same fall off. It's always the guy who stopped running for a long period of time, and then was like shocked just to find out that they're older and slower. But so one thing I wanted to bring up with you, it's something that I wanted to hit on just a few like kind of points and things that I know that I've learned sort of from our conversations over the years. As you said, you had like this crazy track season this year. You know, like if Team BYRD was a school, it would have won states, right? Like, you know, 10 medalists at the state level, and again, you're in Pennsylvania. That's a state with multiple. Yeah, there's multiple metropolitan areas. That's a state that can swing an election. Like,
Effective. This kid, Jaden Horton Mims, who Marquez raced in the 100 at AAU and his freshman. He ran a 45 400 and a 20.43 200. He beat Quincy Wilson. That's how tough Pennsylvania is. It's not like it's not the state, but he beat Quincy Wilson. So it's just not like going to walk.
Yeah, but just the point being, like, you're in an area, I said this last time, you're in an area that like no one lives in, and then you're competing against, you know, the Pittsburghs, the Phillies, the big metro areas. Once you get to the state level, you know, like it's not like you just, you know, are successful amongst, you know, it's not like you're just a little school that gets to cherry pick sort of its schedule. You've got that kind of success at the state level, which, as I said last time, like Louis would say, like, that's a system at play. But additionally, for anyone who's like followed you, there's something very distinctive when you see a BYRD athlete sprint.
Yeah.
Like in a track meet, it's usually pretty easy to find your kids. Your kids all have, not maybe not every single one, because some are on their way to getting to this point, but your sort of upper tier kids, they all have these like super long strides and just like eat up the track, through like the race will be, it you see everyone come out of the blocks on 100 and you go like, well, which kid is BYRD's? And then you see one kid that just starts to stretch out way, uh, put that, that gap sauce on or whatever you say, like to all of a sudden like fly out with these big, long, like effortless gliding strides. And some of the races, they look almost like comical down the stretch, especially with some of your girls, because everyone else is bunched up and they're everyone else, the field is bunched up and everyone looks bunched up, like physically, like they look all tight, and then your girls just like gazelles, just it's as if they start to just like thin out horizontally, and they stretch out and seem to take like 3 steps and be 10 yards out in front of everyone else.
Oh, yeah.
And so you've kind of subtly already, I can't remember exactly what you said, but I was like, that's the point I want to hit on today. You do a lot of, maybe not a lot, but you have a sort of a pretty big emphasis on max velocity. And you said it with, your kid, that as his sprinting got better, his ability to kick the ball gets better. That's a thing that I've noticed with your training that's different from Jared or Goodman. They're very like sort of super acceleration heavy. And kind of like the constant for you is a lot of the fly 10 work. Long before I had heard, like the first place I heard about fly 10s basically was from you, probably like, a decade ago, to see like you timing fly 10s and just to see like, oh, it like, because your kids weren't on tracks or anything, like they're doing them in the parking lot. They're doing them in these sort of suboptimal, removed from the track conditions. And, like they're just walking out of the weight room, burning some fly 10s and going right back in. And it's something that like, that's such a simple concept. And it seems so obvious once you've kind of seen it and become accustomed to it. But again, being a kid who like, in the late 90s, early 2000s, when I was an athlete, like simply jumping onto boxes was like, oh, that's, like they're doing something different over there. And you're out in the parking lot, like running these, watching these kids kind of ramp up and then put the pedal down and fly through these fly 10s. And the way that you dose that into, like it's with the lifting sessions, and it's not the speed work and the lifting are not like, they're not these separate components, they're together. Like just that whole sort of perspective of it's really like you're using, the very ends of the force velocity curve within the same training session.
Absolutely.
And then I started to notice as well, like I say all the time, like when things are true, they repeat. And you start to see kind of the similarities of logic between how you do the running and how you do the lifting, and seeing that like all of these concepts people tend to separate lifting and sprinting, or lifting and running, like they're different things, and ultimately it's all just like you're moving through sequences and postures over a given period of time with a given load, whether that load is just simply gravity on your human flesh, or gravity on your human flesh plus whatever other resistance. Like the movement is simply movement. The contraction and creation of force is, if you boil it all down, like it's all the same thing existing on this large continuum. But I guess all that is to say, like, why do you have that emphasis on the max velocity work? How much of it do you do? How frequently do you do it? And what's sort of the perspective on it kind of making more of your emphasis that max V work? And is it correct even to kind of categorize it that way?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I look at it this. Well, for one, I train a lot of track kids, but I never a lot of football kids too. I believe you look at the force velocity curve. On one end, in the middle, between eccentric and concentric, you got isometric. That's max. Right. On the other end, you beyond a jump. That's max velocity sprinting. That's high force. And I call it infinite velocity. And so I think if you train both ends, you're going to affect the curve greatly. If it makes any sense. Number two comes down to, so what happens is when you're at that top speed, your foot and you're bringing your foot, your foot down to the ground so fast with so much force. To me, that's more. I mean, more than acceleration. Let's be honest. The force is way higher, and the impact the collisions is massive. That's some of the best. To me, it just meshes with the strength better than anything. And number two, I used to have this conversation with you all the time. These combine guys are pretty good nowadays. They're getting faster because these colleges are recruiting track guys. Syracuse goes, Marquez, we want you to run 10.5. I'm like, what? And then these 10.4. They have a guy in the running back room runs a 10.1, 10.18, which is nuts. So you got to get these times down. But, they come to combine, they're running 4.3. That's pretty good, 4.4. But you get a track guy out there, like, for say, Kellen Walker, ran out at the halftime of the Iowa game, ran a 4.13. Justin Gatlin said he ran 4.0 for the Titans, I think it was. So they're at another level. Because why? Because they have the max velocity, they have the acceleration, they have the elite elasticity. So it's got to be all those three. But to make a robust sprint athlete, you need to come. I believe the max velocity build is to me. And here's the thing about how I know it works. All winter all summer and fall we'll do max V. On a rainy day when it gets cold or it was snowy, we do acceleration 10 yards. They're faster. Why is that? Because all the forces they've driven up, the stimulus they got from hitting max velocity affects the forces in the acceleration phases. To me. So another thing too, those ground.
Well, that's also you're still doing like while in the parking lot with the gates, like you might be a max velocity emphasis. You're also one of the dudes who does 1RMs.
Correct.
So you're hitting as fast as you can go and as heavy and slow as you can go. Exactly. So then when this is like again, sort of I frame that as like, I say like absolutes have primacy over their developmental qualities. So like, like when people say like, oh, you're strong enough, now you need to work on rate of force development. Well, that's a developmental quality. You can only develop in context to how strong you are. So
Right.
the strength becomes the limiting factor for rate of force development. And then internally, there's rate of force development based on like how fast all of those signals are processing through your body.
Right.
But then there's what they're processing into, meaning like, if you are neurally more efficient and you can call upon, 10% more of your relative force within whatever that time frame is, but the other guy, even while being neurally less efficient,
Right.
if he simply gets so much stronger than you, his effective rate of force development will trump your internal rate of force development.
Right.
And so getting stronger makes your rate of force development go up. It kind of has to a large degree, depending on what the ground contact time or the sort of allotment window of time is. Most of the time, your rate of force development has to go up. The effective rate of force development, how much, let's say a force plate would read, it has to go up if you significantly augment that absolute strength, that absolute force. Well, then likewise, I just take that framework, that concept, and go, okay, max V is absolute speed.
Correct.
And now instead of calling it acceleration, let's call it rate of speed development.
Right.
It's the same thing. So now it's, well, in order to in order to improve my acceleration at a certain point, my acceleration is going to be, my acceleration is going to develop in contrast, in context to I'm only going to be able to develop speed that is, a sub output of my absolute speed.
Correct.
So if,
yep.
yeah, so if I could run 19 miles per hour, but I was a great accelerator,
right.
Well, I would be an even greater accelerator if I could run 21 miles per hour. And likewise, so if I got stuck on a segment where just, the car's rattling and shaking and the pedals to the floor, but it won't go any faster, that also comes back to, I had Rolf on and we've talked about that. And Rolf said, the hardest thing is organizing a very fast movement. It's sort of like the coordination of it. Like that's at the far end of the velocity side is what dictates how fast, if you minimize the load entirely, you get to a point, like if you could make your arms and legs weightless, you get, if we unloaded you on one of those like treadmills, like I used to train on one of those when I was in high school. If we unloaded you entirely, we couldn't, if we took all the load off and made it where like the strength was not an issue at all, you would still hit a terminal velocity of like that you couldn't move any faster. Even if we took all force production out of the equation, it would come down to like your body can't organize and coordinate fast enough.
Correct.
But if your body could organize and coordinate faster, then suddenly everything on that continuum that took place slower would become easier to organize and coordinate. So it's like there's an absolute strength surplus that helps you to, say, accelerate a light implement fast, or to get more reps on a rep test, to throw further with a shot, to swing a baseball bat harder. And even then, like your own limbs have weight to them, so getting stronger allows you to swing your own limbs faster. But on the other side of it, there's that neural component of, like you said, like when their max V comes up, that's one of the most stressful things that you can put the human body, like that's the most stressful sort of movement equation you can put the human body through. So now it's like, what's less stressful than max velocity sprinting? Kicking.
Right.
pitching, hitting,
Right.
all of these things are by comparison, they're less stressful. So now, you know, now you can like unlock added gears like neurally because you've sort of built this surplus into the system that now you can like globally as an organism you can like globally handle a level of stress and speed that your specific task now, even if you're in a sport that doesn't have the max V, your specific task uh, doesn't strain you as intensely compared to the max V.
Yep.
So,
Now, when you start off on a sprint and
mhm,
you see this on a muscle lab laser, or you see it on a 1080, it takes it's peak force in the beginning, first couple steps, then it's
mhm,
peak power, then it's peak velocity. That is what you're going to see on the force velocity curve when you're lifting too.
yep,
When you're out, you got peak force. That's going to build your first couple steps, and that definitely the first step in the first couple steps.
mhm,
Then that power region that's why the jumps matter. The higher, so once the higher your strength levels become, it builds the power levels in the middle. And your explosive
mhm,
power level. The higher your speed levels come, you actually it builds more power levels too. And so let's say, for instance, like let's take Noah, the guy I was talking about. The guy was the 40-inch vertical. He's 165 pounds. He squats about 450, you know. And then so now his first step is incredible. So again, he's running 24 miles an hour. So
mhm.
in 10, in the first 10, he's hit almost 14 miles an hour. You can't run 19 miles an hour and hit 14 miles an hour. It's just in the first 10, it's just not going to happen. Natalie
Yeah.
Walters, he squats 305. Now, I maxed her out every week in the season on a Sunday. And we did max velocity sprints with it too. That's what we did. Another girl, her teammate Erin, she came in, we maxed out, and we did a max velocity sprint. We worked at both ends of the spectrum. And guess
Which
what?
one
In
would you
times,
do first within the workout?
that's a good question. I'll do a couple. Well, this is how I do. I will come out. We'll run first, just one time, fast. Then we'll max, come back and run again behind it, and that's how we kind of do it. And then maybe
You
run
do
one
just
more.
the one attempt before?
Oh, for the lift or the
Yeah.
sprint.
Of
Oh,
the sprint.
well, we'll just do one attempt. Yep, and max V. You know, as fast as you can
Mhm.
go. Trying to put the pedal to the metal and come back because I want them to hit one fresh. Now, here's another thing
Uh-huh.
too. Max,
Is that usually their fastest?
no, the second one is the fastest because
So
using the max
after they lifted.
after they lifted, the stimulation from the lift potentiates the next one. You know, so
Mhm.
that's why either the lifts or the jumps potentiate the sprint. And I've tested it for years and years so that I simulate their fastest run with a max effort jump or a sprint. So I couple
Mhm.
those. Now, I thought that I came up with it. This is a Russian circuit. This is what they call.
Yeah.
They used to do the same with jump or lift to potentiate sprints in between it, rather than just sit there and just
Mhm.
rest. In order to run fast, you got to rest. For every 10 meters you got to run, you got to rest a minute. So if you run a 40, you got to rest 4 minutes, you know. But
Mhm.
the system recovers 7 times slower than the musculoskeletal system. So the kids don't understand that. So to slow them down, I potentiate it with some max effort lifts, you know. So Natalie hit 305 of a 0.3 meter per second. I could have kept going. She probably went at 315. And guess what? She dumped 19.9 maybe the next couple days later, you know, in the long jump. But that's the thing. So like, once you get to the, that's why like, that's why I've had a lot of success. Nobody really maxes out. I max out still, you know.
Yeah.
Marquette maxed it out too. He goes, matter
Mhm.
of fact, before the league championship, he ran as fast as he ran a 10.8 10.83, I think, 10.87, excuse me. He goes, Bird, I'm maxing out. It's a Sunday. The meet's on Tuesday. Now, most people are like, oh my God, I'm not doing that. I've trained him for 7 years. He knows I need doses max force to be explosive. And then I need, because again, if your force production drops, your explosive power drops, your speed drops, everything just drops. So you got to maintain that, and that's where you taper down. You got to keep your max strength in there long enough as long as you can, but it lasts 25 days. But you can keep driving up during the season, But but your peak is then you take away the lift. Now you have that max strength level so high. Now your explosive power is high. Now your speed is high. But the same people they get away from this lifting. I won't say any. My buddy's girl went to a major college. Guess what? They stopped lifting in November, and then by the time they got to April, May, guess what? The max strength is gone, the explosive power is gone, and the velocity is gone. So it's just he was taken back because this is a major school. They just have these fast people, freaks that can just do whatever you want with them. But you got these kids. Most of these kids aren't freaks, so you gotta be smart with this stuff. If not, but you think at the same time, again, we talk about elasticity. What better way to get the body adapts what it's placed upon. In order to get that tendon springy and fast, there's no other faster way than running fast, because your ground contact times are now below 1/10. You can't get that in a gym. So when you're overly fast, that's how you build that elastic. Now that can be destroyed. I have people go to school and they do all this tempo running, and guess what? Those slow ground times, they make the tendon react slowly. So and guess they don't lift heavy. Now they lose force production. Guess what? They don't jump. I guess you guys jump. No, we don't jump. Do you guys max out? Do you guys lift heavy? No, we don't do that either.
Yeah.
So
they seem to not do anything.
So they come back. Oh, they do power.
They don't run fast. They don't jump high. They don't lift heavy. They're working out, but you can't tell what they're doing.
I mean, they're doing circuits. They're sweating their butts off, but they're not.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. To me, a good track coach has to know the weights, and you have to know the explosiveness. Because it's all tied together. Your velocity is like the brother and sister of that explosive power and strength. If you didn't know that, dude, capped on how fast you get in my book. But that's like when I took Brandon Huntington, he goes, all the time he goes. He even told, I said, how strong is Natalie? She's pretty strong. The girl lifts 300 pounds. She weighs 140, 130, 135. He goes, Bird, she's not strong enough. I go, what run should I do? Is this technique good? Bird, she's not strong enough. And this is a high level track coach, dude. But he knows the value and explosive power. So that's why. But if you for track, you got to hit both ends, because it's basically what makes these kids run fast. It's a display of your maximal strength. It's a display of your explosive power. It's a display of your velocity. If you can just train those things, that's what you're seeing. My kids, they're just displaying their maximal strength, their explosive power, their max velocity. That's all it really is happening. And it's like I want to say it. A lot of people. There's a couple of people do say they're drop on it. My buddies. Ron Grant, Milton. Campbell. They know. I talked to Brian Campbell. His girl has 7 state medals and 2 national titles. He goes, Bird, we lifting heavy. We lifting heavy, dude. We're lifting heavy as long as we can until we can. The girl ran 11 too. And he's like, it's about this power training. Nobody in the States doing this power training, but you and a couple people. And he goes, I told this one school how to do it. Now they got fast people. So, and then, so it's just, the top guys are doing this stuff, dude. It's just, you can't, and now that everybody's so fast, now you see the combine is the 4.2s and 4.3s is common now.
Oh yeah. So there's
can't be games now.
Yeah. So I wanted to pull back in a conversation we were having the other day, because, so again, like, you're lifting heavy, you're lifting as heavy as you can, and you're running as fast as you can, literally back to back. Like it's the same. It is a marriage of just the entire continuum of training. And I also think that it's
Another thing too, and Huntington calls it force leaks. Louis would call it mini
hmm
maxes. That if you can't see, if you lift sub maximally, the lift looks smooth. You can't
hmm
now. What happens is it's synergistic. You're squatting. Okay, the quads hand off to the glute, and then the quads hand the hamstring, and then the glute, and then the hips, and then you're seeing like the body coordinate at a maximal level. But you can't see that running
hmm
fast. You see it when you're moving slow under high heavy loads. So Huntington says the force leak. You can't see force leaks until you're put under loads of high stresses. And so when I see those many matches as force leaks, you can't, again, as sprinting as a display your maximum force, your maximum power. If you have a force leak, you can't dissect it, you can't detect it unless you're heavy loads. When I fix those force leaks, my kids get faster all the way down the. And so that's why I call max effort is it's my testing, it's my screen. If I don't have, football players come to me, oh, Bird, I want to get faster, but I don't want to lift with you. I said, well, I can't screen you. I can't see where your force leaks are unless we max out.
right,
And then,
right,
if I can't fix them, so I have to have the lifting, or your speed gains are gonna be limited, dude. And that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, the diagnostic value of there's the training, like 1RMs get like such a bad rap from people who
Randy's guy was
like
Randy's guy was Subing Chan was the calf. The calf was
hmm
the weakness. He couldn't find it when he ran. And he had 1080. That's all. But then he said, "Damn, your calves are weak. Get on that calf machine." And then boom, he got faster. So continue.
yeah. Yeah, but it's simultaneously, like people think, you know, it, again, there's that whole like, well, are you strong enough? And I hate that. It's like, why are you even caring enough to ask that question? Are we strong enough? I don't know. Are we fast enough? If we're fast enough, if we have no desire to be faster, jump higher, cut faster, cut harder, if we are at the apex of performance and there is literally no value to ever being better, like if we found the best that there is, like it, if we've become so good that we're bored,
Right.
then I guess we're strong enough, because then that means that we have we have enough resources to be as fast as we could ever want to be. But it's like, just are you strong enough? Are you fast enough? Do you want to be faster? Well, then no, you're not strong enough. There might be other things that you got to solve, but like, why would you cap one of the largest? Also, if you know how to get strong, like it doesn't take longer to get stronger the higher you go. You typically, like what you're doing has large enough is a large enough stress upon itself. It's kind of like I got that little tiny wrestler right now who benched 240 at 120, as he just finished his freshman year. Now a year ago he benched 115 at 110. So he put on 10 pounds, and we put 125 pounds, excuse me, on his 1RM bench.
Right.
And oh, by the way, he jumps 33 on the OVR, and he's only like 5'2". Like he's a short little kid, or he might be 5'4". If apologies, Malik, if you listen to this, I don't think he will. But before his teammates make fun of him, but he also, like he quit track to focus on wrestling, and we run all these sprints, and every time, like with all of my kids, as one thing goes up, as the strength stuff in the weight room goes up, running our few sprints a day, I last week he hit 112 on the 10 to 20, like 112.5 for the first time, like last Thursday. Then this Thursday he goes 110, and you go like, well, how many sprints did he do? He just did like 2 to 3 a day.
Right.
2 to 3 a day, 3-4 times a week. And when does he do them? He'll usually finish his first, he typically comes into the weight room after the lift has started, so he just goes straight into the rack. So like he squatted a huge PR, then he did sumos, then he did step ups, then he did Nordics, then he did back raises, then he did marching, then we did the vibration plate, and then did a minute on the vibration plate, and then he came out and goes, boom, 111. Well, damn, that's a PR of 100th, and you just did a 2-hour lower body workout. And then he waits, 4 or 5 minutes, like lets all the other kids go, and then he hops back in, takes his shirt off, psychs himself up, 110. And it's again like everyone would, like the same people who try and separate the weight room from separate strength from speed would also probably tell you, well, the book says you always do the speed first. Speed has to be first, has to be fresh, has to be all this. It's like, what if you get the kid in shape, and now you can use the weight room as the potentiation. Yeah. And now also the kid's not worried that, like any little thing is going to derail his performance.
Right.
Like
Louis said, the body strength isn't not measured in mass, it's measured in velocities. So your body is weight. Once you get your legs strong enough, that weight of your body feels lighter. And then you can move it through space vertically and horizontally faster. And that little in wrestling is now you're talking about other sports. He's going against wrestling.
That's the other thing. That's the other thing. They wrestled before they came into the weight room.
Wow.
So like when he's doing this, they got there an hour and a half before me, and they did a wrestling practice. So like this whole paradigm is completely inverted from what people are normally looking at. Now, again, our wrestling coach, he's very bought into everything that I do, and he's become over the years like increasingly sort of conscious of the idea of like, well, maybe they'll be better if I have them actually do a little less. Like maybe they'll be better if I almost go to a point of like being nervous about, did we do enough? And so he's shortened everything, and they have more rest built in and all this. And like, so their practices now take far less away than their practices, 4 years ago. And then additionally, my lifts now, while it probably sounds like a lot, like the intensity is through the roof, the volume is much lower. But simply for like ease of logistics and space and management of kids and stuff, like we have to do most of our sprinting at the end. And my fastest kids run their best. My girl who runs 112, 10 to 20, who I'm still like weary to, I've told you what the girl jumps. She broad jumps over 9 easily.
Crazy.
Her OVR, literally have yet to hear another high school girl, at least. You directed me to one person who's got a college girl with a higher number, but like she does all of that at the end of her workout. Like she squats first, she benches first, she does all the big heavy things first. And then at the very end of the workout, she'll be like, all right, I'm gonna come lay down like 3 jumps, 1 or 2 sprints occasionally, and she is by far our fastest girl. And, she's put over, I think she's put almost 11 inches on her vertical. She put nearly, 2 feet on, I think she started a 7.6 and she's gotten to a 9.3 on the broad jump. Like she started good, and now she's like world class in all these things. And it's just a steady microdosing of the fast outputs, and then being very consistent on the very heavy outputs, oh, now I remember why I wanted to say all this. It ties back into a conversation I was having with you the other day about a coach who called me, and he asked, like, he's like, have you paid attention to what's happening in college track and field right now? And I was like, I don't even know how to begin answering that question. Like, maybe what's happening? What are we talking about? And he's like, well, and obviously I'm from Tallahassee, and Makai Danzy, comes from our school, and he has the NCAA lead in the 400, 44-38. And he plays football at FSU as well. So, like, in the fall, he's with the football team. And then in the spring, he's running the 400, and he's the fastest in the country. And this coach was like, there's more football players having very high success against the track only kids, not just in high school, but it's happening with this sharp uptick in frequency in college. He's like, why do you think that is? And I said, well, if I had to guess, I would say it's because track coaches have long been, not the ones who are dominating, but the ones who think that they're doing everything right have been allergic to the weight room, and they do everything, so general. They're afraid to put intensity to anything. They're afraid to do real, they don't want to do high reps like a bodybuilder, but they also don't want to do low reps like a power lifter. So they end up just on this island in the middle where nothing actually happens physically. You just sort of introduce unnecessary fatigue. And meanwhile, the football guys, they have the biggest strength staffs. They've got the most, tech. They're getting sports scientists. So now we're starting to see, I think, the benefits of, and now, like, football coaches have dealt with the sports science guys long enough that, these guys aren't just like nerds paid to sit in the corner of the room. Not entirely anymore, now, like, it's a normal enough process that maybe now when, like, the nerds speak, the football coach listens and goes, like, so they say, like, hey, hey, everyone's slow, like, we might be at greater risk of injuries. And now the coaches are actually starting to tailor some of their decisions, probably in relatively small ways, but you're seeing, it's kind of like with OVR. Anytime you add, if you get a jump device, if you get an OVR jump, your kids are going to jump higher. And it's not because the OVR jump is magic. It's not, it's simply now the kid is going to learn from every single rep. And now you, as the coach, whether you're conscious of it or not, if you see the kids getting worse, you're either going to become increasingly anxious to solve the problem, or you're simply going to tell the kid, hey, you're going downhill, stop.
Right.
You're going to start to figure out patterns and dial in your own training, and your training's going to become more effective because you're seeing the results of it. It's like when you put a thermostat on an oven, all of a sudden it's not put the food near the fire and hope it comes out. Now it's, oh, I notice when I cook it a little longer, or a little, if I dial the temperature up a little more, or a little, like, there's a level of precision. And so the football coaches are they're starting to see when they've burnt the kids. And so they're starting to pull back, like, they're starting, on one end, they're getting a little more aggressive. They're making sure that the kids are actually getting high enough outputs that they're actually sprinting. And then on the other end, they're starting to, just kind of cut out junk volume a little bit more. And then you've got the track culture on the other side that has had faster kids because those kids are devoted to track, and because, they're a lot lighter. The average 100-meter runner is 170 pounds. So again, that would be too light to be to go way back to the front of the conversation. That's too light to be valuable at, the highest levels of football. So of course they're faster. They're having to carry less. But when you get this mix of athletes who compete in both, one sport is far less afraid to train them to actually increase their horsepower. And now they're starting to pull unnecessary load off of them, unnecessary volume of like running. They're starting to look at their recovery, and it's that combination of like allowing the athletes a better shot at recovering, and then also getting them jumping, getting them lifting, like starting to hone in the weight room. And now, even though those guys don't have all year round to work on their craft of track, the shift in the ecosystem is starting to bear out, where at the next level they've got the horsepower to overcome basically what the track athletes are like leaving on the table. That's at least my read on it. I could be entirely off, but that's what makes sense to me.
It does. That guy, if you're paying attention, Jordan Anthony, the NCAA had the West playoffs, so to speak, prelims, top 12 to Oregon. Jordan Anthony ran a 9.75 in this prelim. Guess what? He plays football.
Exactly.
Exactly. So
and it's and that's what I'm saying is all these dudes who are allergic to the weight room and work on the technique and they work on track all year round, and their coaches, they're doing every mock drill, they're doing all this, and then a football player shows up, a part-timer shows up, but he lifts with the football team. And there definitely, there was a time where maybe that would be a thing that would ultimately kill his track career, but we're starting to hit this shift where in certain places where they know how to leverage that lifting and they're actually paying, whether it's, they actually understand the technology, they understand the feedback, but they're getting this like influx of quantitative data is allowing them to make better decisions. And now you're starting to see them transition and have this success in their off season. And so I said all this before. I'm realizing now why I keep going down these tangents. It brings up, so you had 10 state medalists this year from a tiny little, again, you're from a stop sign town. You're from a little, you're from a little hole in the wall out there. And so it's not just that you're picking and choosing this genetic sampling. You're getting what walks in the door and you're making the best of it, and you're predictably getting these results, and you're lifting really heavy and you're sprinting really fast, and it's having these amazing results with your track athletes. And many of those track athletes are converted athletes from other sports. That's another thing that, knowing you, that I know about your kids, like, and you say Marquez, who's,
I get this girl, Ellie.
Marquez got,
I get this girl, Ellie Cucker, man. And her mom went to school with me. I've been at the game so long, I'm training my classmates' kids. She's a sophomore. She run now, her mom's like, she's thin. She's frail. She's like 115, 5'8". Her mom goes, she's watching her play, and she's getting pushed around. And she goes, Bert, you need to get away from that, because these people in Florida and California, they got trainers. They're heavier. They're just, so we need to gain weight and get stronger. So this girl, I gain weight on her, 5-10 pounds, but she is phenomenal. She, like you say, that they're in the pack and they just open up and they just separate their strides. Well, that's her. This girl is, but she knocked off my track girl, Kaylee. She knocked off I have a silver medalist from Jersey, Sierra. She knocked her off in a race. I mean, this girl's phenomenal. So it's just, I would have converted her over and she would have had a state medal, but she's
Mhm.
playing. She's a PNL champion from Penn Fusion, and she's an
Yeah.
All American, and so she does not have time. But if I would have had her, she would have been number 11, dude. You know.
Yeah.
So, but what come down to her and all this whole thing? I'm a like I came from the Buddy Morris tree, where was Louis Simmons and
Mhm.
Charlie Francis, you know, and then that Charlie
Yeah.
Francis thing that was stuck out to me. That's why you see Ben Johnson squatting 700 pounds. As
Mhm.
get my kids stride longer, it's, and there's a little chart in there. It's whoever produces the most maximum force in the shortest time, which is the ground contact time. That's your foot, it bounces the body further and faster. So the higher
Yeah.
that capability becomes, and your elasticity becomes, you can the harder you hit the ground, you're gonna have a shorter ground time and a longer flight time. So that's why I
Mhm.
max right to get the more force in the ground, and then I go fast to get the shorter ground time, and that creates the longest strides, and that's how we
Mhm.
open up on. And that one thing that Charlie said that sits well. I tell my kids that. That's my first introduction on our first session. Hit the ground harder so you can bounce further and faster. I in fact take a lacrosse ball and I throw it down. I barely throw it, and it bounces in the ground. It's on the ground long and it barely bounces. It trickles down the road. Then I throw it fast
Mhm.
and it fast and it bounces further. It's like, okay, that makes sense. So that's why, a lot of these guys are converted athletes. They're just
Right.
basketball player, freaking, almost wins the whole state. Soccer players. Natalie's a soccer player. Oh, now I'm going to do track now. Now she's a multiple state medalist. It's just they're all converts, dude. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, fast. I could get a scholarship by getting one mark. Whereas I got to
Yeah.
go to a soccer team and they're like they don't use data in these sports. Like I would be at the AAU tournament. Okay, this person shot 50% this game. They shot 50. Okay, now I'm gonna take them. Oh, but they're just looking at. Oh, I don't know what they're looking at. They're evaluating on this subjective stuff. But this is
Mhm.
so we can just all it's all measurables. That's why I like baseball
Mhm.
too. How fast can we throw it? How fast can we swing it? We drive those up. They take note of that stuff.
Yeah. Well, so with all that, so you're doing the 1RMs, you're doing the max velocity sprinting. You're uh, you've got a lot of kids who play multiple sports,
Yep.
and you've got this very noteworthy, like track success out of your gym. Like a lot of people know you for your track success, and yet a lot of these successful kids from track, they're not track kids when they come to you. They become track kids,
Right.
but from what and some of them become good in track, but then they go on and, they keep playing another sport at the next level. So what I'm really getting at here is your training doesn't seem to be specific to any sport.
Correct.
It seems, it's as though, and I get asked all the time, like, well, how would you train this or how would you train that? And I go like, I just make everyone a better athlete because like no coach has ever asked me about, like, hey, do you have anyone who's like strong but not too strong? Do you have anyone who's fast but not too fast? Like everyone wants the strongest, they want the fastest, they want the biggest, they want like every sport wants the best, and those best all overlap. And the way that you get the best to come out is the same way. Like, the nature of the vehicle doesn't change, the use of the vehicle changes. So you're just like you're building you build the best, car you can, and then they decide which lane they want to recruit it for.
Exactly. Because if you
Um,
in Europe they call it athletics. It's not track and field.
yeah,
It's athletics. It's how fast can you run? How high can you jump? How far can you throw? That to me. That's
yeah,
baseball, volleyball. That's basketball. That's football, dude. It's like you build those general qualities and be good in athletics or track and field. They can do
mhm,
anything. That's what the people see on the in basketball court. Oh my God, they're so fast. Oh, they can jump so high. They're just athletic, and they can once they can become a track and field, they can be pretty good at anything. To me, though, those are the most plus athletes, you know, so to speak. So I like like that guy, that girl Ellie. They look at her on the soccer field like, oh my God, she's so fast. But that's why she's ranked ninth in the country in 2026 class. He's very skilled, but with that speed on her, she runs 21 miles an hour. How many soccer players are doing that? She's gonna stick out like a sore thumb. You know, it's just like she's playing with slow motion like little girls because everybody's running. In a game, she's hitting speeds of 15, 60 miles. Brother, these girls are hitting speeds of 12, 11 miles an hour. It's like shooting fish in a barrel, dude. So, but you know, if everybody gravitates and trains, it's the biggest cheat code, man. Because you stick out, you can just all these sports. You know, that's what it comes down to. But you got to hit the max. It's all comes down to strength. Strength is key, and that just builds everything down the line. You know, yeah, I've never seen. If a kid is freakishly fast, put that strength on them. Watch what happens, dude. And that's like a Cole Cook and a Brandon Miller who played baseball. They came running 7.2. That's pretty good. But then they got down to 6.4, 6.5 once they got some strength on them. And they had like 38, 39, 40-inch verticals. You know? And they can hit the ball 400 feet like nothing. The thing about baseball, too, it's the same thing. How you get that rotation and torque, you're applying ground force in short amounts of time. The same thing. If you can't jump and swing and hit because you're not applying force in the ground. So what makes you get that hips around? You apply. If I'm right-handed, I'm applying more force in my right foot, and I'm getting my hips around faster. It's this, and that's the same thing with baseball, throwing and swinging. So I apply that principle that Charlie said. What makes the best athletes to produce the most force, mass specific force, in the shortest amount of time, ground contact time, that'll allow you to do anything. Kick a soccer ball further, throw the baseball further, swing the bat further. So I apply that to baseball too. The faster they run, the higher they jump. Guess what? They throw faster and they swing faster. And you see the same thing with your guy. I'm guaranteeing.
Yeah.
Look, tiny dude is strong. God, how can he hit that far? You know, he's applying massive amounts of force. Sometimes I wish I had a force plate and put it on in the bat box because you can see these things. I think the high level guys do that. You know, they can. My buddy Rob Cruz is interesting. He's a batting coach. He did that. He would have hitting lessons with a force plate. He could see. He knew the data. He could see, and some of the high level colleges they know that. So he would submit their force plate data from the amounts of force they're placed in the ground. And they, okay, I see what you're seeing, you know. Now, of course, the bat speed and all the exit velocity. So that guy is a genius, but he from the baseball's perspective, and that's why me and him click. That's my guy, you know.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm gonna let you start to get going because we're closing in on 11 o'clock here.
Yeah, man. One couple of things, man. The thing about what was pretty interesting about I want to go into Noah Tapper, the guy who hit the 40.
Yeah.
And so, you know, again, the missing piece was his elasticity, you know. He was powerful. Now, he ran a 174 in the first 10 meters, which we know anything about track, that's blowing. And then obviously ran the 4.4940. He had the 10.2 broad jump, and he had the 40-inch vertical. The OVR, let's plug the OVR a little bit because that's a great product. I clocked him on the track. We were doing wickets. He got down with the OVR ground time. He hit .75, I think it was. But before then, he was hitting .95. Again, slide in the ground, you get a shorter ground contact time, you get a longer stride. So once that went up... .05? On the ground, he was like a .90 or something like that. He got down to .75, .75.
.09? Yeah.
.09.
Yeah.
.09.
Yeah, I was gonna say we're talking about the step ground contact, right? Yeah.
Okay. We did an assisted run. He ran .65. He was running 26 miles an hour. That was pretty cool. And so, but what happened? He would get out on people, and then I remember the one guy was talking trash on him, tall kid, black kid. He was like, "Man, he was just talking on the side. I'm gonna let him get out. I'm gonna catch him because I'm tall. I can just walk him down." And that's what happened. But what we did is hurdle hop ground contact time, like you do the hurdle hop. We worked that down. Like he was like 1 point. I use short hurdles. He was like 1.1314 was good. He got down to 0.93, which is almost like a sprint. Okay.
Yeah.
And okay, we did his calves are weak. Just like I call him the white Subing Chan, you know, or it might be black because he had and he had ashy legs. I said you might be black, dude, but it had a black girlfriend. And anyway. He had his calf weak, and so got his calves up. He was doing reps with I think 450, 500 pounds, 10 reps, and then the test is RSI. I'm an RSI guy. People don't realize that because RSI to me is sprinting. It's like how many inches you need to get on the RSI on the OVR. That's like how much force you're producing, right? And then how fast can you get off the ground? And ground contact time. To me, the faster ground contact time and the higher the inches of vertical is, the higher the vertical is basically the stride length to me. That's how my brain works. If you hit hard, you can bounce out in a short ground time. So the short ground time, the higher inch vertical creates that longer stride. That's how I think. So he got the 405 on the RSI. If you know how that is, how hard that is, and so once he had that component built in, now he can continue that stride length down the track, and he just blew everybody away. I'm gonna post that race up eventually, but he was in the pack, waterfall like you said, and just boop, 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 open up on people. Yeah. You know, that's how I kind of engineered that guy. But again, we was maxing out, dude, all the time. We was max separate sprinting, and he was running 22 at high. All of a sudden, he went to 23. 23 low, 23 mid, 23 high, and then he was hit 24 every time. 24, 24, 24, 24, 24. And then what happened? Guess what? His first attempt was crazy too, because now he had that ground time was shorter. The ground time was shorter in the beginning as well as the end. And I was doing on the starts. He was hitting 2.1 or something like that, which is pretty quick. And then the second step was like 0.16. Then the third step was like 0.165, 159. And so, but the other kid was like 2.5, 2.6, and then was maybe like 1.7, 1.8. So, that's what Marquez was actually, because he had his first couple steps was slower. So it just all revolved around the maximum strength and above, below the knee. So that's how I kind of re-engineered that dude, you know what I'm saying? So, but that's how I kind of got that guy from 12 flat all the way down to 1082. If he didn't have the hamstring, he would have went 10.5, dog. He was explosive, bro. So, but that's all I wanted to say.
All right.
And
well, like I said, Les,
if you get the chance, I tell everybody, if you got those jump mats, man, they're cool, but like, don't be afraid to transfer over to the OVR because you want accurate results. My kids are afraid too, but I said it's about 3 or 4 inches off. And so I had one girl that the other day, I was at 27. She had 24 on the OVR. She said, "Oh, I beat my old just jump." So now my kids don't even think about that thing, So I said, don't be afraid to move on to the technology. This is 2025. This is in 1990. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the cool thing you can get with the ground time on the hurdle hops, and you can see what happened in below the knee, the lower limb. And that stuff is, you want to be fast. Like that stuff is valuable. Like you got to pay attention to that stuff because that was my mistake years ago. I had Robbie Fry go to the combine, and I had this girl Bryn, and some of my older kids. I wish I had paid attention to that. I wish I had this technology back then, because I think like, damn, if I had it then, it'd be crazy. Them kids been faster than they've been just as fast 10 years ago. But and then you got the OVR Velocity, which is probably the best. It's probably the best velocity device on the market, because They had Rolf on there, and they got that time peak velocity, the ES. That
Yeah.
stuff is nobody has that. So that's
Yeah.
why I had to go buy my thing because that's my next thing I'm going to work on. Because that might take my kids up another
Hmm.
notch. And then you got
Yeah.
something else as well. So I just want to say it's a great product, man. I just hope everybody moves to the future. Because I actually have an
Yeah.
OptiJump. I actually bought an OptiJump because I wanted to see the ground time, but now it's like, damn, this thing is that. I wish I would have known about that for dropped like $10,000 on that thing, which doesn't even work
Yeah.
because the other one was broken. Rob gave me a broken one, but now I can do I can do what I want with that. And
Uh-huh.
I was Jamaican Coach Stephen Francis. He said,
Hmm.
"Man, this is pretty." He's like, can I put this around the track? I said, "Yeah, you can do it." So they were thinking the same way I'm thinking, like because they want to clock these round times, dude. In
Yeah.
fact, the round time the longest ride. He was like, dude, he was looking at him like, this is pretty cool. So I mean, the people that know. Finally, I just say, if you want to learn more how I do it, I have my certification too,
Hmm.
which I talking to guys from Utah and Florida and Texas and stuff. So, and there's people that's been studying the game and been in the game for years, but they kind of like, I never knew this was that. I didn't know this happened. So it opens the eyes. That's why it's good to have these podcasts. It's like okay, because a lot of people don't max out, so
Yeah.
they just they're leaving stuff on the table. So that's all I have to say.
All right. Well, as always, Bird, thank you so much for coming. We are, I will have Bird on the if we
I
do
get.
100 episodes of this, I'm sure like 6 of them will be Bird. So
I'm gonna crank my thing back up again. I'm gonna have you back on my joint. I need to get that thing fired up because it's in the car in the garage on blocks. I got to get that thing rolling again.
all right, yeah, go check out some of Bird's. His podcast is great. That's another one that uh, you know whether it's like yours or Zach's or Jared's, like there's certain podcasts that every episode that comes out, I'm going to listen to
I
two,
had
three times over.
a lot of coaches go, man. I cruise over this and man, I learned this and that. Like it's funny how I get a lot of messages like that. They go, man, this has changed my game because they've gone back and listened to all the old ones. It happens all
Hmm.
the time. It's a I think you could make a killer program just because you got 20 different points of view. You can
Hmm.
just pick and choose what you like. That's why I
Yeah.
try to get people perspective on there.
Hmm.
That's the right. That's what it is.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Great, man.
as always, this has been the Burn the Ladders podcast. Go to after those kind words from Bird, go to OVRperformance.com. Get yourself a velocity. Get yourself a jump. Again, just because simply like I love track and I love speed so much. Our ground contact time features best in the game. No one is. That's not even being arrogant. No one is close on that.
You
The
can pay 6,000 for an optic jump if you want to, but you can get the LVR and do the same thing.
Yeah, yeah. For one OptiJump, you can get many, many OVRs, so you can, why limit yourself? Um, they're going to set up a lot faster too. But um, again, this has been another episode of the Burn the Ladders podcast. Go check out our sponsors. Go follow Bird. Go listen to his back episodes, and we will we'll talk to you again soon. And maybe one day I'll upgrade and get some intro music. But until then, signing out.
All right, brother. On the train.